Hola Amparo, bienvenida.
Buenos días, maestra.
Buenos días. De veras que no sé si va a haber interpretación hoy, porque yo creía que venía Claudia, pero no he oído nada de ella hoy, entonces no sé. Si llega, entonces la pongo como intérprete, ¿no? Pero quizás
Sí,
quieres esperar un momentico a ver y
claro que sí, maestra.
queremos que venga, pero no sé. Ok, gracias por su paciencia, for your patience with us. Great. So, welcome to all of you. Always a joy to see us all gathered here together and taking care of our lives in this way by practicing Dhamma. Today we have a guest speaker. I'm very happy that Bhante Sanathavihari is here to offer the program today. But before I turn it over to Bante, I just have a couple of announcements. So next weekend on the 18th, at this same time, at the usual Sunday Sounds of Dhamma time, we will have a gathering called the State of the Sangha. And Kylie and I are going to present some slides and just talk a little bit about all the beautiful Dhamma that was offered in 2025 and a little bit about our plans for the offerings and retreats and things that are coming in 2026. And it's a time also for some feedback, some interaction, and just kind of a town hall style gathering for the Sangha next Sunday at this same time on the 18th. After that, immediately following that, we'll have brunch hosted by Kodo. So if you're local, you are welcome to come and join in the potluck lunch, and we can talk even more about how things are going for you. And there's still a couple of seats available for the retreat called Insight Flows at Barry Center for Buddhist Studies up in Massachusetts, the last week of the month here. And we also have the March retreat open. So the March retreat, March 7th to the 14th, is a retreat that is you could say the kind of capping or the closing for the fundamentals course, but it's also open to everyone. And it's a retreat about how, you could say, how to balance intention and receptivity on the path, how to really navigate the role of intention and effort, and still opening up to this beautiful truths that we can receive. So, those are just a few of the things to think about, opportunities for you. And then just to say, Bhante Sanathavihari, yes, he is a Theravada monk with more than 10 years in the ropes now. So he's a Thera. uh, an OG, as he said to his friend recently on Instagram. And and Bhante is also someone who has practiced pretty extensively in the Zen tradition as well, and received the 16 Bodhisattva precepts here with me on a few years back. Uh, so always a joy to have Bhante here and to hear his wisdom and some of his practice experience. And so, Venerable, please take it away.
Yes, so I'd like to start off, just maybe we can do a short meditation just for some grounding. I know some of you were in class and took a little break, so the mind might be a little agitated. So just get nice and comfortable, won't be too long. Find your posture, find your seat. And while you're doing this, just check in with your body. We tend to hold a little bit of tension in different places in our body, so you can just kind of start off with a little body scan, just checking your face, making sure you're not holding any tension in your forehead or your eyes or your cheeks or your jaw. You can go down a bit and check your neck and your shoulders, upper arms, lower arms, hands, your chest, abdomen, upper back, lower back, hips, upper legs, lower legs, and feet, and making any adjustments. Just checking in with the body, making sure that the body is relaxed or as relaxed as can be. Once the body is relaxed, we can bring our focus to our practice, developing our attention, our mindfulness, whether it's more one-pointed on the breath or open awareness. I'll leave that up to you. Let's take these few minutes to develop our mindfulness. And in the next few moments, you can prepare yourself to come out of your meditation, using that same mindfulness, attention, focus that you developed to listen to the Dhamma. So I'd like to start off in the traditional way by paying respects to our original teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo tase bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhase. Namo tase bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhase. Namo tase bhagavato arahato Samma Sambuddhase. Yes, I'm so happy to be with all of you here today, this morning, or day or evening, wherever you may be. Happy to see Roshi again. Thank you for this opportunity to be here with all of you. Yes.
Thank you for coming, Bhante.
I actually have a presentation. So do I have the, yeah, whatever that's called, do I have the power?
Okay, yes, you have the privilege of sharing your screen now.
Thank you. All right. Yeah, so today I want to talk about the confluence, right? Or the similarities between these um, two important ways about thinking about how we embody the Dhamma, right? Or um, the ideal practitioner, ideal a little loose, like let's not be too dogmatic about it, but, just so we have some sort of understanding of uh, the path and what it looks like to embody the path. And I wanted to bring together these two traditions, right? So the tradition, the Chan Zen tradition, of what that might look like, focusing especially on Linji. You might know him as Rinzai. He is my favorite. I know in Buddhism, we don't have favorites. We're equanimous, but I do have favorites. I'm still a regular person. Linji's still much my favorite because of his directness and his iconoclastic perspective on things. So we're going to be looking at, Zen's or Chan's or Linji's true man, a man of no rank, or true person, right? A person of no rank. And the early Buddhists take on the Sappurisa, right? Um, called the person of integrity, or just a true person also. The true person is pretty much the same. So we're going to be looking at these two things. I know I'll leave a lot of time for questions. I know some of you might not be as familiar with maybe some of the Pali and some of the early Buddhist perspective. So I'll try to leave some extra room near the end for that. Okay. So we'll start with my homie, the triple OG, Linji. This is a quote from one of his sayings. On one occasion, the master addressed the assembly. I, a mountain monk, tell you clearly, within the body field of the five skandhas, there is a true man with no rank, always present, not even a hair's breadth away. Why don't you recognize him? Then a monk asked, what is this true man with no rank? The master struck him and said, the true man with no rank. What an impure thing. Again, on another occasion, Linji said, within your lump of red flesh, there is a true man with no rank, constantly entering and exiting the openings of your face. When a monk asked who the true man is, Linji responds by saying, the true man with no rank. What a dried lump of shit. So now just a bit of it, elaboration, explanation. Yeah, what is this true man? So please forgive my Chinese, my Mandarin. It's not, I haven't really had a chance to practice it. So we're talking about uh, Wu, Wei, and Shen Ren, right? Literally translates to no rank or true person, referring to someone who embodies enlightenment and lives authentically, regardless of societal hierarchy, right? So and you can see there the Chinese characters, in which how they break down into each one. In Chan or Zen, the true man or true person of no rank refers to the authentic, unconditioned self, the inherent Buddha nature within everyone, characterized by effortless, spontaneous action and freedom from ego, status, or conceptual judgments. It's not a special person, but the ordinary mind, engaged in daily activities, responding directly to the present moment, without pretense, desire for fame, or reliance on external validation, as taught by masters like Ninji. So what are the qualities of a true man? There's many ways, we can cut a cake. Actually, the true qualities of a true man are infinite. But for, teaching purposes today, we'll break them down to a few. Starting with authenticity, living without mask, right? Being free of the persona. Pretenses, right? Things that we require in order to whatever do or be however we need to be. Or arterial motives, right? Wanting good karma, wanting a good rebirth, wanting praise, fame, gain, etc. Another one is spontaneity or non-contrivance, responding naturally and skillfully to life situations, like putting on a coat when cold or eating when hungry, without external struggle, internal struggle. Then we have, I think what most of us would call like being free from ego, freedom from rank, not seeking or needing titles, status, or recognition, indifference to fame, wealth, or social conventions. Then we have ordinary mind, recognizing the way and enlightenment are found in every day, not in extraordinary feats or artificial efforts. We also have inner light or the Buddha nature. The true person is the pure mind, the universal principle of light and intelligence, present in everyone. That means even you, okay? How do we uncover this true person? Well, we can break it down to a few things. Don't strive for special achievements or recognition. Today, there's a saying, you're doing too much, right? Don't do too much. Let go of self-measurement and external judgment. Right? Stop comparing yourself. Deeply connected to here and now, acting from direct experience. Here's where you can bring in your practice of, mindfulness, satipatthana. Live life according to the natural flow. Eating when hungry, sleeping when tired, without inner conflict. Just be ordinary. Now let's take a look at the Sappurisa or Satpurisha. Sappurisa is a true person, a good person, a person of integrity. The term is not defined by social status, learning, or ritual purity, but by ethical conduct, right view, and wise discernment grounded in the Dhamma. The Buddha frequently contrasted the Sappurisa with the Asappurisa, bad or noble person. A beautiful thing about Pali is that you can just add these, a negative in the front, and it makes the word the opposite. It's very easy to understand how Pali works. So here we have Sappurisa coming from Sat, right? A good, or Santa, we could say like calm person, a tranquil person, and Purisa meaning person. So let's get some examples from the suttas. So here we have an example from the Anguttara Nikaya, Book of Fours, Sutta 73. There's a lot of, if you put Sappurisa in, there's a lot of suttas by this name, right? So during the time of the Buddha, these things were not unnumbered, and there was no names. All these names and numbers came later, right? So just take that into account. And the Anguttara Nikaya is a collection of suttas that are categorized by the number of teachings. All right. So this one is in the Book of Fours. There's going to be four things here, right? So in this Sappurisa Sutta of the Anguttara Nikaya, it says, there is the case where a person of no integrity, when unasked, reveals another person's bad points, does not reveal another person's good points, does not reveal his own bad points, reveals his own good points. Of this person, you may know, this venerable one is not a true person. Monks, a person endowed with these four qualities can be known as a true person, does not reveal other person's bad points, reveals another person's good points, reveals his own bad points, does not reveal his own good points. Right? So you can be a chismoso, gossiping all over the place, right? That's one thing you shouldn't be. And we also we're like a good hype man too, right? We hype people up. If it's true, we can feel free to hype people up, right? Reveals another person's good points. Here's probably one that's difficult for us, revealing our own bad points, right? We have so much shame and guilt, and we're so scared to look at our own flaws. But a true person knows where they're at, right? Knows where they're at on the path, and is not scared to reveal where they're at. That means their shortcomings too, right? In the same way that we might be boastful of our success, we also need to be open-handed and share freely where we need some more work, right? And does not reveal his own good points. So we don't want to, be too boastful or exaggerate just how good we are, especially compared to others. So as I said earlier, usually in the suttas, when we look at a true person, they're always contrasted with a not true person.
Sorry, Bhante, can I interrupt for just one moment?
Yes.
Hay interpretación simultánea si desean elegirlo en este momento, así que bajo el globito donde dice interpretación, si alguien desea la interpretación en español. Gracias.
Okay. So in another sutta, right, from the Anguttara Nikaya, right, in the Book of Sevens, also called Sappurisa Sutta, a true man, a true person, is broken down into 7 qualities, has these 7 qualities, understands these 7 qualities. So they understand the Dhamma, that is to say, what is wholesome and unwholesome. They understand Atta, right? Not to be confused with Atta, what is beneficial and harmful. Atanyu, one's own limits and capacities. Matanyu, moderation, especially in consumption. Kalanyu, the right time, proper timing. Parisanyu, the nature of different groups of people. Pugalanyu, the character of different persons. And this is really important when it comes to when we speak, when we share the Dhamma, these qualities. If you know something about the suttas, you'll notice that some of these are quite similar to the qualities of what is right speech. So in the Majjhima Nikaya, which is the middle length discourses, here there's also another sutta called Sappurisa Sutta. There's another way that we can look or classify a true person, the Sappurisa. They don't glorify themselves and put others down on account of their eminent family. Right? So they're not attached. They don't identify with their family's status or caste, we can say it, in the time of the Buddha. They don't glorify themselves and put others down on account of their extremely wealthy family. They don't glorify themselves and put others down on account of their fame. They don't glorify themselves and put others down on account of their material things. They don't glorify themselves and put others down on account of their eating in one sitting per day. Right. So the first one is interesting. It has a lot to do with kind of like the lay life. Right? And now we're getting into more of when it comes to practice. And we'll continue with they don't glorify themselves and put others down on account of their attainment of jhanas, which are usually trances or absorptions. And they don't glorify themselves and put others down on account of their attainment of the dimension of infinite space and etc. These are the formless attainments, right? So whether it's worldly or non-worldly, right? Holy or unholy, we don't ever over-identify with these things. We don't ever use them to compare ourselves to others and either make ourselves superior or inferior. Take a true person who, going totally beyond the dimension of neither perception nor non-perception, enters and remains in the cessation of perception and feeling. And having seen with wisdom, their defilements come to an end. This is a mendicant who does not conceive with anything, does not conceive regarding anything, does not conceive through anything. And this is the highest level of the Sappurisa, according to the Majjhima Nikaya Sutta, the Sappurisa Sutta, right? So here we can say that at the, highest level, the Sappurisa is one who has completely, is always working on and has completely eliminated what's called mana. Mana is in Pali usually translated as conceit, pride. And in early Buddhism, mana has three aspects to it, three dimensions. The one when we usually think about conceit or pride is superiority, so feeling above others, right? Measuring ourselves with, comparing ourselves with others, and then coming to the conclusion, well, I'm better. And this sutta, because either of caste, or we can say today like ethnicity or race, because of your family's fame, prestige, or because of the money you make or the possessions that you have, or because of any kind of spiritual practices, or because of any meditative attainments, right? You don't consider yourself superior. The other one is inferior. So it's called hina mana, right? So we see someone else who probably, in a very conventional way, we think, oh, well, they have a better human form in whatever way, or born into a family. And we see ourselves as less than. We might compare ourselves less than because of the family's prestige, or the person's income or possessions, or because they follow all the rules. They're such a good boy and girl, and they bow perfectly, and they light the incense so perfectly. And so we think we're a little bit less because we can't we can't do the offerings and all the other Buddhist ceremonies in such a beautiful way. Or we see them sitting in serenity, and oh, everyone here is so beautiful in their meditation, but I'm not. I'm here. I can't even meditate. My legs are falling asleep. I'm not a good person. I'm not a good Buddhist. So we can't also think that way. An interesting take in this mana aspect, this quality of conceit and pride, is that the third one is that we don't see ourselves as equals either. Right? So this is rather confusing because nowadays, I think for very just reasons, because of imperialism, colonialism, racism, um, mm, we had a lot of social movements based on all humans being equal or having equal rights. But this is a different type of equality that we're talking about. Here, we're talking about not basically not comparing yourself to others in any way, right? Not looking outside. A true person does not look outside. We don't need to worry if people are above us, below us, equal to us. It doesn't matter. We're not focused on other people. So anytime we see ourselves, right, measuring ourselves, comparing ourselves, categorizing us, putting ourselves into these conceptual boxes, and then we're straying away from the qualities of a true person, of the Sappurisa. So these are just a few examples that I wanted to share with you. And actually, my favorite part of all these types of events is the Dhamma discussion, the interaction, right? Because there's where the Dhamma comes alive. These things you could chat GPT it and learn it, right? Like whatever. But what comes up in the moment, between us, that's something that chat GPT can't do yet. So now I'd like to, open up the space for reflection or questions, whatever works for you. Just go ahead and raise your hand and then unmute yourself.
Mm.
Oh, everyone's become a true person now. Sadhu, sadhu. Yes, okay, we got some hands now. Go ahead. Ingrid? Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much for this wonderful teaching, Bhante. Very timely. I've been working on the comparing mind for quite some time, and I would love to hear any guidance or suggestions you have for um, working on being a true person who doesn't make themselves superior or inferior, doesn't look outside, not even looking at other people, so therefore is not engaging in comparing mind.
Mhm. Yeah, so there's some very practical teachings that the Buddha gives us, in the early Buddhist teachings in the suttas. And I think you've already touched on some of this. So one way that we can train ourselves not to look outside is to keep our attention inward, to look inside. And this is called satipatthana. Right? So satipatthana can be broken down into 3 words. Sati, you already know, right? Mindfulness, being aware, attentive. Upatthana, upa is close by, near, or inwardly. And thana means to place. This is quite contrary to what we do on our day-to-day lives, right? Our attention is always out, 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 out to our eyes, to our ears, and not just in the senses, but in the objects, right? And we focus on the characteristics of the objects, the nimittas, right? Oh, what a beautiful face. What a beautiful sound. Oh, that's a horrible sound. That's a horrible face. Whatever. Like we're very externally driven and externally motivated. But when we practice Satipatthana or the 4 foundations of mindfulness, we bring in our attention, right? And since things like pride and mental proliferation are very subtle and very tricky to the Buddha offers us something that we're um, um, obsessed with to practice first in the beginning, right? Kind of working with the way our mind likes to incline, which is the body, right? We're also obsessed with our body. Look at all of us, the effort we made to look nice to come here today and every day, right? We look in the mirror and we check our teeth and like, how do I look? And we do all these things. We put on nice clothes. We try to be in some sort of shape, right? And be healthy. So, okay, let's focus on this thing that you're obsessed with. Let's look at the body. Let's see the body as the body, right? So we draw our attention to the body. Usually it's through the breath in the beginning. Then we do the same thing with these feelings that are basically the main drivers of our lives from day to day. Whether something's pleasant or unpleasant, we recoil from the unpleasant and go towards the pleasant and are indifferent towards the neutral. Then we look at the mind, the chitta, right? The different states of mind. And then finally, we look at dhammas, like all these subtle phenomena or things that are thoughts, for lack of a better word, in the mind. So in the beginning, we just need to train ourselves from our direction going out and bring it in. Like that, just very learning this new orientation, right? We need to reorientate ourselves instead of focusing out there, inside. Once we learn how to do that, we can still look outside, but without being uh, focused on the things that are on the outside, right? So in the seeing, there's only the seeing, right? In the heard, there's only the heard. So we're still paying attention to the world, but we have a different relationship to the world because we're no longer fixated on all the things that lead us to judge whether things are inferior or superior or or boring. So I think just focusing in the very beginning on this practical step, training our mind to be settled within. There's the holy days in Theravada Buddhism are called uposatha, a holy day. This also means to stay within, to keep near the uposatha, right? So any holy day, right, a spiritual day, a holiday, is a day that you are dwelling within, keeping near to yourself, keeping dear to yourself, right? Those are the holy days in Buddhism. So we see this theme going over and over and over again throughout all the suttas of bringing our attention within our experience, right? Within ourselves. That's how we can start. Yes. Any other true person? Yes, Ray?
Hi, thank you so much for your talk today. I really, really liked it because I've been studying Taoism for a bit now. So um, I just want to bring up the Wu Wei and the Wu Wei Zhenren, where Wu Wei is effort action. And I think in today's world, we're always pressed to always be doing something. And so in Taoism, it's kind of goes against the principle of being in the flow of things and doing the right thing at the right time. And sometimes it's hard for us to know when the right time is or what the right action is. And so that's something that we need to train more and set time aside on a day-to-day basis. But we just don't do that. And so your talk helped remind me that I do need to prioritize that more and stop forcing action when it might not be helpful. It might be causing more disturbances in the environment. So thank you.
For sharing that, Ray. What came to mind was, before I was a monk, for many years, I practiced martial arts, and when you're sparring, right, when you're in a fight, there's no time to think. You just do what you need to do, right? You just do what you need to do. You need to get out of your way if you want to survive, if you want to win, right? So that's an example of how, in a very kind of mundane uh, way, we can learn, or we can find ways in which we can be spontaneous and be in the moment. And I think, I was also a rapper, and we used to do like battle rapping in high school. So like in those moments, the verses just come out, right? Like if you try to think about it, you're not uh, really doing what you're supposed to be doing. It becomes a hindrance. So there's many ways. I mean, I think everyone here to some extent can find a way in their lives in which they've practiced this, right? So it's just about leaning into, right, that spontaneity and continuing to develop it. So it's not, I say this because we fall into the temptation. Well, now there's this other thing outside called spontaneity that I need to go get that, and I need to work towards spontaneity, right? And we catch ourselves again in this trap. We'll make everything into a trap. So no, put that away, right? You don't need to learn to be spontaneous. It's already there, right? It's already inside of you. You just need to pay attention that it's there. Notice that it's there. And when it arises in you.
Yeah, it's like the flow state people
Mhm.
get into anytime they do any art or, like you said, fighting.
Mhm. Okay.
Yes.
I'm not real clear on my question, so please bear with me. But you spoke of uh, external, I take this as the external focus of equal rights, all people are equal, etc.,
Mhm.
versus the true person.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not real, I mean, I understand the concept in a sort of a vague way, but can you speak further on that, how it manifests itself? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
So there's two ways that we can um, look at trying to find some foundation for how we look at beings in the world. In the past, it was very externally driven, like by birth, by possession, by achievements, and then we kind of moved away from that to some extent, at least in principle. We wrote it down, and it didn't kind of work out that way in the United States. But that all people are created equal. So what did we do this based on, right? We tried to move away from external factors and try to base it on principles, on some sort of principles. So this is kind of what we're doing here with this true person, right? Instead of looking at what kind of person, how you live your life, what you've done in the past, or how smart or how holy you are, or at least present yourself as a holy, all these kind of practices and precepts, or attainments, and we focus on the very essence of experience or consciousness or sentient beings, and we're like, oh, that in and of itself, right, is worthy. That in and of itself is valuable, regardless if it's, you know, famous person or not famous person, a person who has done much, a person who has done little, whether it's a human or a non-human, right? All beings have this potential for awakening, and then we can base our perspective and how we treat other beings from this foundation, from the foundation that all beings have the potential of awakening. That means all beings can be liberated. And it also means that any being could become a Sammasambuddha like Sakyamuni Buddha at some point. We don't know, right? So once we have this understanding, I think from the Buddhist perspective, we can kind of bring this into our social context and base our kind of rights or how we treat other people from there. But I think more importantly, we realize actually I could be Sakyamuni Buddha, right? Like I could be the Buddha. That could be me. Like I could be free, right? And that's like a kind of radical thing because we usually think of like, well, there was a Buddha, like that's somebody else, like over there. It's other people can do it, right? Oh, awakening, or like, oh yeah, look at Bhante Sanathavihari or Roshi Dhammadippa. Like, yeah, they're very holy. They could be but not me, right? Like we other and we make kind of like these pretenses or excuses for ourselves. But what what this true person, teaching for me at least is trying to reveal is like, no, any of us, right? We can't think that way. We can't think that I'm not worthy, right? Or that other people are more worthy than me. That we're all the same in our potential to be awakened. And because of that, uh, we shouldn't be overcritical of any one person or being, and everyone should be treated in the same way. And this are usually tied to my teachings about Buddhist morality or precepts. Sometimes in Buddhism, there's this temptation to fall into the same trap again. We think of, when we hear the teachings, especially of karma, right, or merit or heaven and hell, then we create this kind of like system of reward and punishment. Right? Go, I want to be a good Buddhist, so I need to do good things so I can have a good rebirth and I can be all these good things. And I'm not going to be bad because I don't want punishment. My karma's going to get me in the future and I'll be reborn in hell. So then again, we're being externally driven, right? Externally motivated. We fall into that trap. Even in Buddhism, we can do that. Instead of what the Buddha tells us, like in the loving kindness sutta, right? It doesn't talk about being good because, oh, if you're not good, you're going to go to hell, or, Buddha doesn't like that, or, something bad in the future is going to happen to you. No, it invites you to understand the nature of all beings. And from that perspective of seeing all beings like that, from that perspective, the Buddhist perspective, then naturally, like loving kindness and compassion and sympathetic joy and equanimity come out. But those things come from a place of non-comparison, not comparing, right? Or not seeing a difference even between you and others. So on the deepest level, we're going to this level called upeksha. And it's at this level of equanimity, equipoise, upeksha, that we're able to, both in our everyday lives, find a way to live in which we don't discriminate and we don't see beings inferior or superior, but also for our inner self, right? When anger arises or sadness arises within ourselves, we don't go, oh, I'm not a good Buddhist. Oh, I'm not a good person because I had these angry thoughts or I had these lustful thoughts, right? We notice that, beings until they become awakened have these things, and I shouldn't compare myself to other people, especially because we don't know what's going on in other people's minds, right? We tend to think that, oh yeah, other people are very holy, they're good meditators, they have all these good qualities. But I assure you, sometimes when I'm sitting in the cushion, I got like a storm going on in my head, and everyone else thinks that, oh, look at Bhante, he's meditating so nicely, and I'm just thinking about like, oh, why did my mom do that? Why did she say that? It makes me so embarrassed, but that's the way it is. Hopefully I touched on some points that helped clarify this for you, what I'm trying to get at. Yes. Okay, I think now Evelyn and then Carolyn. Yes.
Thank you. My question is about the responses that Linji had to the question, so who is or what is this true man interested in, why he responded in those ways.
Mm. Yeah, he was a spicy teacher, you know? And he liked to shock people. And there is a certain benefit to the, like shock and awe. Um, um, Sometimes when we come into, Dhamma practice or any kind of religious or spiritual practice, we tend to idealize it. And by idealizing it, we separate it from us, right? It becomes like something, it's over here, up high, and we're here. And that creates like a long distance, right? Like think about it. For most people, right now, when I told you, you could be Shakyamuni Buddha, you could be a Buddha in the future, you're like, oh, that's a lot of work. That's like far, far away. I have to do so much. I'm nowhere near that, right? That's kind of like most people intuition when they're invited to think about themselves as an enlightened being. They think it's like so far away. But a piece of shit, right? It's something you already have. It's already in you. It's in your body right now, unless you just relieved yourself before. But it's in there already. It's in there already. And in the same way that piece of feces is inside of you, the Buddha nature is also inside of you, right? It's not like, feces is poop is this element is something separate, right? It's in you. But we kind of have that adverse reaction in the same way we have to poop to being awakened. Oh, like, oh, not me, not me. I'm too defiled. I'm a bad person. I cannot. I need a lot of work, Bhante, right? That's kind of like when we do the poop. Oh, that smell, right? Oh no, I don't like the smell. But like, flush it right away. I don't want to see it, right? We have these kind of weird interactions. So for me, Linji's building upon this idea, and actually, the Buddha does it himself. There's a famous of many famous examples when the Buddha talks about the body in that type of way to help people overcome their conceit, right? We saw a lot of this has to do with conceit, either one's own conceit or other person's conceit. And there's a famous case where a very beautiful young woman, right, is offered to the Buddha as a wife because the father thought there's no one worthy in the world and he was looking for a worthy person. He came across the Buddha, said, oh, this is a very handsome, worthy person. I'm going to try to marry my beautiful daughter to her. And when he tried to do so, it was the father, the mother, and the daughter. And the Buddha says, no, like, what would I do with this skin bag, full of blood, urine, and feces? I wouldn't touch it even with my toe. The Buddha was not denying her beauty. I mean, she's a beautiful person. It's very clear. She ends up marrying a king later. She's a beautiful person, right? But she had a lot of conceit, right? And the father had a lot of conceit. He was very proud of his daughter because she was so beautiful. And so was the mother. And according to the story, by giving this teaching about, feces and urine and blood and skin bag, the father and mother became stream enters after hearing that. Or we could say like some form of Satori or Kensho, they got, and they were free, but the young daughter wasn't. So I really see Linji building on this tradition of using what makes us uncomfortable, right, as a way to be comfortable, to become comfortable with the uncomfortable, and using these things that shock and awe us to break us out. I mean, Linji's coming from the tradition of Rinzai, so his tradition of using koans, and the koans are supposed to do that. They're supposed to challenge you to look at the world in a different way, right? And then sometimes in order to do that, we need to be kind of provocative, right? And that involves like skillful means, right? It's not for everyone to go out here and start saying all these kind of things. That's like for the teacher who has these qualities of upaya, right, to be able to teach. So this is how I like to think about when Linji either talks about poop or hits someone in the head with a cane, right? They're just like skillful means for that particular person in that particular context. Like the Buddha also knew, right? The Buddha didn't go around calling everyone like skin bags full of poop and feces. he did it for very particular people who were really infatuated with their bodies. Yes, now, Carolyn?
Thank you so much for the presentation. It's really stimulating, really helpful. It's so rich. And my question is about um, how to be discerning without practicing conceit. Because I see that there's a lot of discernment when you were going through those pages on the saparisa of wholesome and unwholesome, skillful, unskillful, practicing sila, and then also being able to know your own flaws and say what those are, and to being able to see the good qualities in others and say what those are. So there's a lot of discernment in, knowing who to spend time with, like who do I associate with, and how to practice. So I feel like discernment's totally necessary. How do I practice that without that extra selfing part of the conceit, without nourishing conceit at the same time, is my question.
So the requirement for discernment, to be able to distinguish what is wholesome and unwholesome, is mindfulness first. So mindfulness is a prerequisite to being able to discern. So if we look at the 7 factors of awakening, the first one is mindfulness, sati. The next one is Dhamma vichaya. Dhamma vichaya is knowing what's wholesome from unwholesome. Usually translated in a very clumsy way. I don't like it, like investigation of dharmas. Doesn't really tell you much about it, but it just means knowing what's good from bad, right? And here we have to look at it in kind of the Buddhist way, in kind of mechanical way. So when we see some unwholesomeness arise in us or in others, we just see it as an unwholesome state, as something that brings suffering, that takes us away from our goal, which is awakening, and a wholesome one as something that moves us away from suffering and takes us towards awakening. So we need to shift from clinging, attachment, or personalizing, identifying with things, to seeing things as they are, as they arise, as they appear. What they said, that was unwholesome. That's an unwholesome state. Instead of like, they said that, they're a bad person. Like, I don't like it, right? Or I'm thinking this, I'm a bad person. I'm not a good practitioner. Just, there's anger. Anger's unskillful, right? It's not to be developed. Okay, it does require this. And we see this because when the Buddha asked us to contemplate ourselves, he also gives us this kind of more mechanical way of thinking about ourselves, right? So when we think about ourselves, he has to think about ourselves like in the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Like ourselves is the body, the feelings, the mind, the Dhamma, or in the 5 aggregates, right? Also, or in the 12 factors of dependent origination. So the Buddha always invites us to kind of break it down. Like whatever's happening, like break it down. And in that breaking down or investigative or curious process, we're able to see things as they are and not fall into this storytelling, person creating myth. But the problem is that we don't do that, right? Something happens and we feel like we already know what's happening. Like, I already know what this is. There's no curiosity, right? Because I already know what this person. This person's a bad person. This person's a good person. Oh, I already know who I am. I'm not worthy. I'm not a good person, right? We don't take the time. We need to pause. We need to look, pay attention, be curious, not fall into our patterns, and then find a way to break these patterns. And once we do this, the more we do this, the easier it becomes. But in the beginning, it's just it's a huge huge task that we need to do. It even seems very impossible in the beginning when we're trying to not take things personally or not judge people, because we're just so conditioned to do it. And you shouldn't blame yourself, because that's what you were taught. We're taught, and it's reinforced every day, right? When you go to work and you're hanging out with your friends and family, like this this way, the unskillful way, is being reinforced. So you need to like go against society. You need to go against all your conditioning. That's a monumental task. So anytime you see yourself not falling into that trap, give yourself a pat on the back because it's hard, you know? It's like if you're squatting 400 pounds or something, like that's a lot of weight, right? It's hard. It's a difficult task. And if you can do it, you know, you deserve a pat or a clap to acknowledge that.
Pat.
Susan, were you raising your hand?
No, I wasn't. Thank you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's fine. What do you think, Bhante? Any other questions or reflections, comments for Bhante? Not at this time. I want to say I always love these bringing together of the streams of the traditions, you know, and having a look at the ways in which they're similar and ways in which they're slightly different. What are they pointing to? What's the, you know, how do I receive it different in different language? And so I very much appreciate it. Thank you, Bhante. So usually we have an announcement toward the end, but I don't know whether there's more that you wanted to share. I mean, we have a bit of time yet, about 25 minutes or so, but we can also close if you feels like it's appropriate to do that. So I leave it to you.
I'll use the time, Roshi.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Could you send your presentation out?
Yes, of
Yeah.
course. Yes, I can share it.
Okay, thank you.
And so as Roshi said in the beginning, you know, I've always had my toes in both Zen and Theravada. Interestingly enough, I started both paths around the same time. Back in 2012, around that time, 2012, doing both. And I remember in the beginning, you know, this kind of I don't know, like teams, right? Like the Zen team or whatever, Mahayana team, and like the Theravada team. And I go to one place and, you know, we're on this team, even within Zen, right? Like, oh, this is like the Soto and this is the Rinzai. But we're doing Zen, not like Chinese Chan. It's like, isn't Chan and Zen the same thing? You know, like just in a different culture. And then even in Theravada too, right? There's like the insight and the jhana and like, oh, all this kind of stuff. And it all seemed rather silly to me, you know, to me, at least when I would practice and when I would pay attention to the teachers. And when I would read like Dogen Zenji or Linji or Hakuin or, you know, even these mythical accounts of Bodhidharma and all the Arahants, I saw the same thing everywhere. You know, I saw the same thing. Regardless of how the Dhamma was seasoned, right? Like whatever the seasoning was, I still saw the same Dhamma. I still saw the same person. I still saw the Buddha. I saw the Buddha everywhere. I mean, I see the Buddha even in non-Buddhist places, but if you pay attention, it's there all the time. And I found that so inviting. It was like an intuitive thing. I didn't need to be convinced, at least not in, it didn't have to be articulated to me, right? I didn't need like a theory to convince me, like a set of arguments. Even when I would read the koans, I went through all these different collections, like the Gateless Gate and all of these kind of koans, and even reading like the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, all these different Prajna Paramita collections, and um, the early suttas and other commentaries. I kept encountering the same thing, right? And for many years, it was something that I couldn't put into words. It's just something that I knew, right? Like it just felt familiar, like family. And it felt like something that I didn't need to earn, actually. Like it's my birthright. This is my birthright. And I don't need to convince anyone of it. I don't need to do something to get it. It's not something separate from me. It's something that's always been inside of me, like a hidden treasure, right? There's that ancient story, a parable or whatever about the person who goes out looking for a treasure, right? And they go out for many years and they finally come back and they realize that the treasure was buried underneath their home the whole time, right? They had always been wealthy and rich. And it's that, right? It's that. The thing is that we've been convinced otherwise, that we need to go somewhere else, we need to do something, or that we need to earn it. Or we've never taken the time to look, under our bed or under the house or inside in our hearts and see what's really there. And it was that pulled me towards, the Dhamma, whether it's in the Vajrayana, Mahayana, Theravada, just seeing that message pop up over and over and over again. And every time I encountered it, whether in formal teachings or through the way in which a practitioner is in their state of being, I always feel like something inside of me light up. Right? I could see that thing. Oh yeah, it is there. Like it's there. I feel it. And when I would read the suttas, you know, and hear the accounts of the Buddha, I felt like I was there. I was transported there, and I could really. It was like a resonance. I was in resonance. I was in harmony with the teachings, and it's something that I understood inside of me. Actually, we could take it further. Not only inside of me, it was both inside and outside, right? Because even inside is like creating a dichotomy. But that's just the way it feels, right? Because we're embodied creatures. It's like it's inside, but actually it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And from this perspective, I've been able to take in things not only from Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana, but also from other traditions. From this point of view, I've created a deeper understanding and appreciation of the Catholic tradition from which my family comes from Christianity in general, from indigenous Aboriginal practices, or just from seeing people do wholesome things, out in the street. I'm like, oh, there it is. There's the Buddha, like there's the Dhamma right there. It doesn't have to have all the fancy ornaments or be called Buddhism or whatever. It's just built into the nature of reality, right? Like in the Mahayana teachings of samsara is nirvana and nirvana is samsara. There's no distinction. It's true, right? It's true. Not if we think about it like physically as in space, like nirvana is a space and samsara is a space, and they're both this. It wouldn't make sense, right? You can't have both spaces. but the underlying reality to both, or how they're entwined, right? We find nirvana in samsara, and in nirvana and then the opposite way too, right? So we find the holy in the unholy, and we find the pure in the impure. I go back to Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings, right? When he gives the example of like no mud, no lotus and stuff like that. So from this kind of like non-dual or holistic, complete samma, like samma ditti, samma sankappa, like right, usually. We translate it as right, but it really means complete. So this sense of completeness is what I found in every Buddhist tradition, and just in any wholesomeness, any good act, anything that's compassionate and kind. And it's allowed me to navigate spaces and be with different practices in such a way where I always see the Dhamma, and I always feel at home. I've been traveling a lot, Roshi. This all over the world, staying at different temples sometimes with, just whatever temple or place that I find, and I'll just crash there for the night with, not even being able to communicate, taking out the phone and trying to communicate through. But I've always feel at home. Anytime I see people practicing wholesomely in a good way, I'm at home, right? It can be, in a beautiful place or in a very humble place, and it's always there. Yes, I think Evelyn. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I hope I'm not interrupting your flow too much to ask right now. I'm really relating to what you're sharing, and the question that comes to my mind about it is, with all these different forms in which Buddha appears, and there's that resonance, what is it that leads one to choose a sort of dominant way of seeking connection with that? And why choose a particular path in a dominant sense in one's life?
I'll give you just like a very kind of mundane answer first. And the first one's because we like it. We do what we like, right? So we like it, and it might be very superficial, right? Like, oh, Zen, like the aesthetics is so beautiful. I love the Zen vibes. Hey, if that helps you practice, go for it, And for me, in Theravada, just the suttas, and reading them, like I was there with the Buddha, how it talks about the Buddha and who was there, that kind of painting a picture. I could transport myself, like if I was reading like Harry Potter or something like that, right? I could really go into it. So in the beginning, we always go towards what we like, right? So that's what appeals to us in the beginning. And those things that we like are usually things that we find familiar, or things that inspire us. So sometimes it might be culturally conditioned. We pick a certain tradition because our culture conditions us to be that way. Sometimes it's because we're in a certain place in our lives or in a certain state, and that tradition is really addressing what we like, or that tradition is taking us away from what we don't like, right? So sometimes when we come to Buddhism, we do it as a rebelling against our traditional religion that we grew up in, right? Like Buddhism seems so far away from like whatever I grew up with. I'm gonna go here. So there's many reasons, but we can break it down simply to what we like, what we don't like, what we're conditioned, and from like a Buddhist cosmological perspective, it would come back to our patterns and our karma, right? So we through our lives have uh, been around certain groups of people and done certain actions, and we just keep doing that same kind of falling into those same types of habits. So we might be coming back to the people that we practiced with last time. The Sangha here, you might have practiced with them in the last life or in a previous life, right? And you might have been in the Zen tradition last life or a previous life from that, right? So there is that element of like being preconditioned from previous lives that takes us to practice in another way. That would be like the Buddhist kind of, karmic explanation for it. But in our everyday lives, I mean, me, because I like it. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't do it, right? So our likes kind of drive us towards what we do and what we don't do in life. And there's nothing wrong with liking or disliking. Hey, like some people like all the elaborate, beautiful pictures and art and images that they use in the Tibetan tradition and the Zen, the simplicity of Zen, and that's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with the appearances. As long as we don't over-identify with them. There's nothing wrong with like nice things. There's nothing wrong with having a sort of preference in the beginning. That's the reality. There's where we're at, right? We need to practice where we're at, acknowledge it, and then hopefully through understanding we can deepen our practice and take things further. Because there's also that temptation when you come across the Dharma and you hear these profound teachings to jump in the deep end right away, right? And then we start judging ourselves like, oh, why is it that I only like Zen because it's so beautiful and serene, and like I should like Zen because the deeper teachings, I shouldn't be attached to all the beautiful form and the beautiful Zen centers, and then you just start beating yourself up, right? Because you have these um, shallow motivations. Hey, that's just where you're at right now. Like whatever, use that. If a beautiful Zen center inspires you to go practice, that's fine. We can use our likes and dislikes in a wholesome way. There's nothing wrong with that. So I also want to put that out there that we can lean into our strengths, right? We can lean into our habits. There's a way that we can use even our unskillful habits as a teacher. I mean, that's what the Vajrayana tradition is about, really, and the Vajrayana tradition about using, what we usually consider taboo or stigma or defilements and being kind of like an alchemist and transforming them, transmuting them into our benefit. So whether you like it or you don't like it, there's a way that we can use these things in order to help us cultivate the path.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Bhante, for the reflections and the sharing and the deck. So just on a mechanical basis, I will say we'll put a link to it in the blog. So if you go to the website at the top, on the top navigation there's something called blog. I don't blog very often there. Once in a while, a little bit of news, a photo of the cat or something. But we'll put a link to Bhante's deck, and somehow we'll make that happen between us. Bhante, don't worry about that part. We can sort that out. But what I would like to do at this point is to remind folks also that, Mark, it's still possible to sign up for the art tour if people want to do that.
Yeah, it's still possible. I don't have the link handy, but it's in your last newsletter.
Okay. Yes. And I can put a blog thing about that too, if that helps people to have the link there handy. Thank you so much, Mark. And so, Dana, if you would make the announcement, and then we'll allow Bhante to close and dedicate the merit how he would like to do that. All right, beautiful.
Okay.
Giving to Dassanaya Buddhist Community supports Dhamma Dipa, our guiding teacher, the physical location at the vihara, and allows us to continue to offer Buddhist teachings in the support of awakening of all beings, and including having wonderful guest teachers like Bhante come and be with us all. Our support pages are on the website under the support tab. Donate, volunteer, or offer materials. In addition, about once a month, we send an email newsletter with a letter from Dhamma Dipa and special announcements. Thanks, everybody, for being here.
Thank you. And Bhante, if there's something you want to share about Casa de Bhavana, or anything that you want to share also with the group in the chat, you can do that now too.
I'd just like to extend an invitation to anyone if you're in the LA area to come by and visit me at Sarath Chandra Buddhist Center. you're always welcome to stop by. We don't have a website. You can find us like on, I think, Facebook or something like that, or Yelp, whatever. And also Casa de Bavana. So if you are Spanish speaking, you can just Google Casa de Bavana and you can join us online in Zoom. Yes, and dedication of merit. So I'd like to dedicate the merit to ourselves, right? To ourselves. So, throughout your life, you have you have accumulated a lot of good merit, punya karma. And so through the power of this good karma, may you be free from immature company, and may you always have good companions until you attain Nibbana. I'll say it in Pali now. Imina punya kamena mame bala samagamo satam samagemo hotu Yave Nibbana Patiya. Thank you for having me.
Sadhu. Yeah. So wonderful to see you again, Bhante, and hear your words of wisdom. Really appreciate that. All right, everyone.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bhante.